comes George, got the step and Smurfs move and counts in the foul.
Him being aggressive, man, he's an unbelievable talent. One of the best in the game, getting any shot he wants.
And it's not just former players who have something to say about Paul George. Young players also have so much respect for Paul George.
I thought I made it clear that my GOAT was Paul George, but, you know, just to make it clear, my GOAT is Paul George.
George's unique set of skills, including his defensive abilities, three-point shooting, and versatility, once made him a highly desirable player in the NBA. Sure, he might not have had the same level of fame as LeBron James, Kevin Durant, or Stephen Curry, but trust me, he had some seriously cool skills up his sleeve during his prime. So just how good was George during his prime? Let's find out. Paul George isn't just an NBA player, he's like a basketball superhero. This guy can do it all on the court, and I'm not exaggerating. Scoring, yep, he's not just good, he's like a scoring machine from anywhere on that court.
That was a good scoop by the shortstop. Paul George filling it up, starting to warm up.
It's like he's got a magical scoring wand or something. But wait, there's more. He's not just about racking up points. He's a maestro, a real maestro, conducting plays and creating opportunities for his teammates. And oh boy, don't even get me started on his defense. He's like a wall out there, blocking shots and stealing the ball like a basketball ninja. I mean, seriously, he's a total package. You know how they say, jack of all trades, master of none? Well, he's a jack of all trades and a master of all. Let's start off by talking about his laundry list of achievements. He's been to the All-Star game not once, not twice, but 8 times.
The ode to Dirk there by Harden. Oh, okay.
That's like the VIP club of the NBA, and he's not just an offensive juggernaut. He's a 4-time member of the All-Defensive Team. In 2013, he even won the Most Improved Player award, showing that he's not just resting on his laurels, he's constantly working on his game. And in the 2018 to 2019 regular season, he led the league in steals. I mean, come on, the guy is basically a basketball detective, always one step ahead of the bad guys. He even rocked the NBA as a rookie, making the All-Rookie team in 2011. But there's one thing that has escaped him so far, the NBA's Most Valuable Player award. He came pretty close in 2019, finishing 3rd in the MVP race against James Harden and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now let's rewind to 2010 when his NBA adventure began. The Indiana Pacers selected Paul George as the 10th pick in the 2010 NBA draft.
2010 NBA draft, the Indiana Pacers select Paul George.
The Pacers were, at the time, in a playoff drought that had spanned for 4 years, and here came Paul George, their ray of hope. And you know what's even more fascinating? The NBA was going through a transformation back then. It was like the game was evolving, and players who could handle the ball, make plays, and shoot threes were the new rock stars. And guess who fits the mold perfectly? Paul George. He's got the height of a power forward but the wingspan of a giant. Plus, he can jump higher than a kangaroo on a trampoline. The guy's an athletic wonder. He didn't come from a big-name college or a flashy city. Nope, he's from Palmdale, California, and played college ball at Fresno State. But you know what? He didn't need a fancy degree. He made a name for himself with a slam dunk that left jaws dropping during just his 2nd year in the league. In the 2012 to 2013 NBA season, Paul George was already making waves in the Eastern Conference. He earned himself a spot on the All-Star team, even though some questioned whether he truly deserved it. You see, his offensive game had its issues, and they were pretty noticeable. The Indiana Pacers had this grinding, slow-paced style of offense, and George was their go-to guy for creating scoring opportunities. If you looked at his raw offensive stats, they told a different story. He was shooting just 41.9% from the field, which isn't exactly elite. His three-point shooting was decent at 36.2%, and he was solid from the free throw line at 80.7%. But when you put it all together, his true shooting percentage was 53.1%, which was alright but not outstanding. Now, here's the thing. George's style of play often drew comparisons to superstars like Kevin Durant, but with an effective field goal percentage of 41.9%, he had some homework to do to match up to that level of efficiency. It was crystal clear that he needed to be more efficient and do some serious work without the ball in the upcoming 2013 to 2014 season. This might have sounded strange at the time because most superstars were known for isolation plays where they take on defenders one-on-one. But if you watched players like Durant or LeBron James, their their teams played a different style of basketball. Teams like the Miami Heat and Oklahoma City Thunder ran plays that involved a lot of cutting, screening, and spot-up shooting to create open looks for their stars. The Pacers started to adopt this approach for George. They made Lance Stephenson their starting shooting guard, allowing George to play small forward and handle the ball less. His usage rate went up to 28.2%, which is pretty high, but his turnover rate dropped significantly to 11.6%, the lowest of his career. That was good improvement. At this time, Paul was taking more mid-range jump shots, typically considered less efficient, but his increased movement and one-on-one matchups made these shots more makeable. Ironically, he got fewer opportunities at the rim because he was handling the ball less. Season after season, Paul George was already turning heads in the NBA. He was like the Indiana Pacers' shining knight, leading a team with dreams of championship glory. But, he hadn't quite earned a seat at the same table as LeBron James and the other MVP candidates. Nevertheless, he had this aura of respect around him, like the guy who brings a killer casserole to the potluck. The Pacers had been duking it out in the Eastern Conference, and honestly, their efforts were underrated. They'd gone toe-to-toe with the Miami Heat, pushing them to 7 and 6 games in back-to-back conference finals. It was a heroic feat. But then, came August 1, 2014. George suffered a gruesome open tibia fibula fracture, and you could practically hear the collective gasp from fans everywhere. Recovery took him more than 7 months, and when he finally returned, the Pacers had gone through a major makeover. Key players like David West and Roy Hibbert, who used to be part of their core, were gone. Now, imagine the challenge. George had to rebuild not only his strengths but also the confidence in his legs. Those lightning-quick drives to the rim and thunderous dunks over defenders, well, they had to take a bit of a backseat. His explosiveness and his willingness to embrace contact had taken a hit. But guess what? Paul George was like, nah, I'm not giving up that easily. He worked his tail off, and by the time the 2016 to 2017 season rolled around, he was back at his top game. He was shooting at an impressive 62.4% at the rim, 46.7% in the mid-range, and a cool 39.3% from beyond the arc. It's like he had a buffet of scoring options and he was devouring them all. However, as time went on, George came to terms with the reality that the Pacers were struggling to build another competitive team, partly due to their reluctance to pay the luxury tax. After a tough playoff loss to LeBron's Cavaliers, George decided it was time for a change and requested a trade in July 2017. His play during that series may not have been spectacular, but you could see a shift in his approach. He took a remarkable 42 three-pointers in just 4 games, averaging 10.5 attempts per contest, and he was making them at an impressive 43% rate. At times, he seemed even more deadly from long range than Pacers legend Reggie Miller. Reggie, if you're watching, no hard feelings. When George joined the Oklahoma City Thunder and teamed up with the reigning MVP Russell Westbrook, his role became clearer. Westbrook's ability to break down defenses with his explosive drives gave George the freedom to become a threat without the ball. He didn't have to rely solely on isolation plays or pick-and-roll creation. He was content playing alongside another athletic powerhouse who could command attention, and his partnership led him to re-sign with OKC in 2018 despite a disappointing playoff exit. During his 2-year stint with coach Billy Donovan and the Thunder, Paul George underwent a remarkable transformation, evolving into one of the most lethal shooters in the entire NBA. This isn't an exaggeration, especially when you consider the pressure he exerted on defenders while maintaining control of the ball. Oklahoma City began incorporating more off-ball screening actions for George, reminiscent of strategies employed by historical sharpshooters. What sets George apart from the rest is his ability to seamlessly combine catch-and-shoot brilliance with deft ball handling and playmaking when exploiting defensive gaps. This unique versatility catapulted him into the MVP conversation in the 2018 season. During his sensational run in the 2018 to 2019 season, which tragically coincided with the decline of the Thunder, George was attempting an astonishing 9.6 three-pointers per 36 minutes. To put it in perspective, this was 148 more attempts than his first season with OKC and a whopping 191 more than he ever tried during his time in Indiana. Before the 2019 All-Star break, Paul George was arguably the second-best candidate for the MVP award, trailing only Giannis Antetokounmpo. His team was winning games and George was the driving force behind their success, nailing an incredible 40.6% of his 9+ 3-point attempts per game. As the season progressed, George's three-point volume continued to increase. Unfortunately, complications with both shoulders began to affect his efficiency. In the final 21 games of his tenure with the Thunder, he was launching an outstanding 10.5 three-pointers per game, but was connecting at a less impressive rate of 33.6%. Even with that late-season slump, you've gotta give it up for Paul George. His proficiency over the four prior to the 2018-2019 season puts him in the same category as some of the world's greatest sharpshooters. George then moved to the LA Clippers in 2019. His journey with the LA Clippers has been marked by some standout seasons, including his stellar performance in the 2020-2021 campaign. In his second season with the Clippers, he earned a spot on the prestigious 2021 All-Star team. During that season, George put on a show in 54 games, averaging a dazzling 23.3 points, 6.6 rebounds, and 5.2 assists per game. And you know what's even cooler? He did it super efficiently, shooting 46.7% from the field, 41.1% from downtown, and a whopping 86.8% from the free throw line. It's like he had a magic touch that year and he even dished out more assists than ever before. But here's the plot twist. The 2021 season would be George's last healthy one for a bit. He had to deal with a torn UCL ligament that kept him on the sidelines for most of the 2022 season. But guess what? When he made his triumphant return in the 2022-2023 NBA season, it was like he'd been saving up all his magic tricks. Now over to you. How good do you think prime Paul George was? Let me know what you think in the comment section below.